Hey there, welcome to Farmcraft. So working on the excavator today. Excavator has a few problems, but the worst one is the crud in the fuel tank. It keeps plugging my fuel lines. I can't run the thing for longer than 15 minutes before it stalls, and I've got to blow out the fuel lines, keep changing the filters. That's got to be fixed. So that's what we're going to address today. Other issues that it has, this blade lift cylinder won't stay in position. The track adjusters need addressed. Those are going to be in future videos coming up pretty soon. I plan to fix all those, but the tank is the biggest impact on using this excavator right now. So in order of priority, let's go to that one first. Right there is the fuel tank fill spout. Goes down, and this is the actual fuel tank. And you know, I would like to actually take it out and be able to really clean it. That would be the best way, because then you can roll it around, you can flush it out, you can shake all the stuff out of there. But that's just going to be a colossal amount of work. Let me see what's going to be the most reasonable way to do this. I don't want to work myself to death for no reason. I probably can wash this thing out pretty darn well on the machine. So let's see if we can do that first. So another way I've seen people clean these out, I mean, these are just welded, is you cut a hole in it, clean it out, and then you weld it back on. Not sure I really want to do that. Seems excessive just to clean some junk out of a tank. There's just too much attached to this tank to even think about trying to take it off. See, there's the sending unit. There's the fill spout. And then on the front here, you can't see it, but from underneath, there's a cover plate, and then there's a drain that we'll get to in a second here. All right, I've got one of these really cheap USB cameras. I got this years ago, but I'm just going to take a look in this tank, and let's see what we can see, if anything. Over here is the outlet of the tank. That's where the fuel goes to the engine. So I want to snake down there and get a look at that before I do anything, just if I can see an obvious piece of something in there, then I kind of know what the problem was before I start changing things. And then I'm going to drain the tank out. We'll look again, and yeah, let me see if, I don't know, it may not be that bad. Maybe I can just kind of get the fuel out of there, get the drain open, disconnect the fuel line. Maybe I can just wash it out with water. That'd be nice. All right, I've tried multiple times. I actually have a second camera with brighter lights, and I'll show you real quick, but you can't see anything, and it keeps going into the fuel, and then once it's in the fuel, you can't see hardly anything at all. I mean, like if I put it right on the wall, I can see a few inches, but I've got to get all that fuel out of there. All right, so here you can get a look at the drain. Way down there is the hose, and that's a little valve right there. But last time I tried to drain from this, it barely trickled at all. So that's clogged too, just like my fuel output is to the engine. Taking that cover plate off. There you can see the little hose. Ends right here. Stick it down through that hole. I'll get a bucket, we'll open this valve and see if we can't drain that fuel out. Got this other piece of fuel hose that actually goes over this, and it's going to allow me to extend that. Pretty weak stream. Looks like the old Yanmar needs to go see the urologist. And now it's just dribbling. Definitely going to need that appointment. That's about 4 gallons of liquid gold. I'll be reusing that. Okay, right here is where the fuel comes out of the tank to go to the engine. The drain is lower than this, so I should not have any fuel come out of here. Light source right in front of that. If I now go in with a camera, I should be able to see that pretty easily to see what that area looks like. Let's see if we can see anything. So in spite of trying for quite a while here, I can't really get a good view in here, and I'm getting hung up on the sending unit, I think, which is preventing me from, well, it feels like it's preventing me from navigating where I want to go. That is not the hole that I'm shooting for. That's just light reflecting. I keep seeing that and thinking I'm on target, but it's just reflecting off the wall there. Let's see if I can get this sending unit off of here. I mean, if I can get a clear, straight shot down into that tank, that would be nice. So it's not exactly what I was expecting. I don't know if you can see down in there, that's the pickup tube right there. There, you can see the end of it. And there's no screen or anything. I was expecting some kind of screen there. It's just a tube right up off the bottom. Now there is crud on the bottom of this tank, but it shouldn't be getting drawn up in that tube. Not with it like it is. Unless there's a hole in it somewhere. Well, seeing there's no screen inside of that tank, I think I might have a misdiagnosis here. Yeah, because the fuel cap has to vent and allow air to enter as fuel is sucked out of the tank, or you're going to get back pressure and then it won't draw enough fuel. It couldn't be this cap, because at one point I ran this thing with the cap off and it still did it. I'm sure if it did it when the cap's off, then obviously the cap is not causing it. So what I'm going to do, see if I can get the camera set up here, and then I'm going to blow some air through it and see if we have a plug or something that comes out. Well, I reviewed the footage on that, and that was crazy. Sparks came flying out of that. It's a little disconcerting, actually, but you know, this tank is open to air, it's not full of vapors, and it's diesel. It's not going to explode. Let me blow it again. Nothing. So where do those sparks come from? I really don't think there was enough compression. So diesel does fire with compression, but really what happens is when you get a lot of pressure, you get heat. The temperature would have to get up above the auto ignition temperature of diesel, which is 410 degrees Fahrenheit, 210 degrees Celsius. Just don't think that happened here. There wasn't that much back pressure when I blew the line. I guess it's possible, but I'm skeptical. I asked a good friend of mine who's an engineer, and he thought it might have been static electricity and some crud in the pipe. He was thinking like something with a lower ignition point, like some kind of plastic. Maybe, I don't know. The other thing I was thinking is maybe just there was a piece of metal in the pipe and it struck the metal on its way out and caused a spark. You know, two pieces of metal striking together can spark sometimes. I don't know. That was weird. But no sparks now. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pump some diesel in that thing again and do it again and see if it's any different. Okay. Full of diesel again. No sparks that time. I really think there was something in that pipe. I try it one more time just to be sure, but no sparks. I know mechanics blow out fuel lines all the time. I wonder if there are little sparks that happen that we just never know about. I wouldn't have known unless I played that footage in slow motion. Okay, so now I'm passing a cable through it, and nothing came out. I think that's clean as a whistle now. It does kind of make me wonder where there are some bits of rust, because there's kind of a trap there. You can see how the intake comes up to stay off the bottom of the tank. Well, then it comes up again as it exits the tank, so there's a bottom in that tube. And I wonder if there wasn't just rust and stuff in there restricting the fuel flow. That might be all it was. And blowing it out with the diesel in the tank was not adequate to remove it. It would dislodge it a little bit, but it wouldn't actually get it out of the tube. But now I think that tube is clear, so that might have fixed it. Now I got to do the best I can to clean this tank. Looks kind of sad, doesn't it? Just sitting there waiting for parts. I'm sorry, buddy. We'll get them soon. Don't worry. Yeah, so unfortunately, we're looking down the fill tube. The inside of this tank is just full of rust from the tank itself. Why didn't you make this out of stainless steel or something? Or plastic? Something that's not going to rust. Silly. And I understand using mild steel. It's cheap, it's plentiful, but it's kind of annoying for a fuel tank. Now the inside of that tank's rusting. It's going to continue to have condensation and it's just going to keep rusting. I don't really want to cut a hole in this tank. The metal is... it's not that thick. So if I'm gonna cut a hole in the tank, what I would like to do is cut an opening, then be able to drill 8 bolt holes around it, tap those holes, make a bigger plate and a rubber gasket that I can then put over it and have an access hole if I ever need it. I think for right now, I'm gonna do the best I can to clean this thing out and see if this recurs, because that'll be a fair amount of work and it introduces the potential for leaking. I don't really wanna do that for no reason, so. You see all that crud back there? Quite a lot of it. Very gritty rust. And I've thought about power washing it. I just don't think that's a good idea. Talk about making it rust. I really don't have good access to use a power washer. The filler neck would make it go straight down only, and I'd have to try to do it through this sending unit hole, which is very small. I would definitely not be able to wash out the tank very well. I want to take this this drain valve off and clean that out. That side of the tank doesn't look too bad over there. Worst part is in that back corner. So by the way, if you have a machine, especially one with a mild steel gas tank, the best thing to do is always keep it full of fuel. It won't rust when it's under diesel. You know, at the end of the day, fill her up, and then you won't have nearly as much issue with this. Bunch came falling out, but there was still even more in there, so I'm sure that'll drain better now. Interesting about this valve is when it's, usually for me, a valve that's in that position is on, but that's off. That's on, like that. Strange. But the drain is actually on the floor of the tank, comes out and does a 90, so I can push everything to that and get it to fall out. This is an air hose that I've attached to my blowgun. With this wire, I'm able to manipulate it around the tank and direct it where I want it to go. So basically, I'm systematically pushing everything to that far corner and then out. And I'm gonna be able to get all the loose stuff out doing this. And I think for now, that's good. I'll do that. I'll keep the tank full and we'll put it back together and see if that problem's fixed. If it is, I may never have to deal with it again. It may not be 10 years before this happens again. If that's the case, I'll just blow it out again. Another little idea here. You really end up wanting to use a vacuum, but the problem with using a shop vac on this, now it is diesel, probably not going to explode. You never would want to use a shop vac with gasoline, but you're still kind of asking for it. Doesn't seem like a great idea, so I'm not going to do that. But what I do have is this sandblaster. I've shown this in a previous video, which is basically a big Venturi pump. Air blows this way, and that produces a suction here through the Venturi effect. So this becomes a vacuum, but there's no motor involved, it's just air. So I can actually suck things up with this. So I'm just pointing the air gun, blowing it off into space. It's a little vacuum on a stick. So I'm gonna reach in there and vacuum all that stuff out. And I got this little flashlight on a stick. Reach in there and take a look. That is looking a lot better. I mean, there's still rust, but it's at least rust that's attached and it's not gonna immediately come off and plug my fuel lines. And then finally, rust is still magnetic. So this is a magnet. Another Harbor Freight special. And you can get more bits out of there that way. It's a little tedious, but it's not too bad. See, look at all that stuff. Don't know how it looks to you guys, but that looks a lot better to my eye. Hopefully that's going to take care of that problem. I know they make products for lining the inside of fuel tanks, but without taking it off and being able to use gravity to help, I'm just not confident that I'd get a good result. So here's the diesel fuel that came out of it, and I'm just going to put it back in. You can see there was a little bit in the bottom there. But I've also got a screen in my funnel, and then of course there's a screen right there. So see, the fill spout has a screen down inside it. We're catching it all. At least anything of any size. Anything smaller than that would get sucked through and get filtered out by the actual fuel filter. Let's go get some work done. So this is the end of my driveway, and you know, that's a pretty big drop off there. I don't know, that's like a 6-inch drop down right here. It's a job that I could certainly do with my tractor and backhoe, but it would be such a pain, and it's going to be a piece of cake with this excavator. I'm going to take some material from over there, and using the blade and the tracks and the bucket, I'm going to pack it all in here and get it, you know, so that you don't have this huge bump when you go to pull out on the road. I take a look at the filters, but I don't have any of my stuff to blow out the fuel lines. After just a minute, it restarts and works okay for a little while. Well, I actually think the pre-filter might be totally clogged now. All the stuff that I just did to it, it looks pretty packed full. So I'm going to go grab another filter and cross my fingers. Okay, there's 3 fuel filters on this thing. First is this inline fuel filter, then it goes to this fuel water separator, which also has a screen, and then it goes to this main pleated fuel filter. This one is the pre-filter that catches most of the crud from the tank, and this is the one that I think is clogged. Yeah, look at how crappy that was. I bet you that was it. I sure hope so. Shouldn't that be draining out of there? Like, it won't drain through the filter, it's just drip, drip, dripping. Obviously if I go this way it'll drain. Look how packed it all is in there. Nice. So this video is sped up 10 times speed. Cars drive about 60 miles an hour on this road, so this is what a car going 600 miles an hour would look like. This is 17X. That puts these cars at 1,000 miles an hour. Hasn't run that well since I bought it. Yes. Okay, right there was where that big drop off was. I went back and forth on it with my truck. It rained once. Now it's nice and packed down and pretty hard. So that should last quite a while. Full disclosure, after using it a while longer, it started doing it again. This filter already has some crud in it. I think the issue I'm having here is there's a minimum allowable fuel rate before you're going to have problems with the engine. And this filter, even when it's perfectly clean, is not that much above that. You can see that these filters are much smaller than the main fuel filter that came with the machine. So once this thing starts to clog at all, it's affecting the engine, and I'd have to change the filter all the time. Now I'm using these filters because they're from Napa, they're cheap, they're easy for me to get, and they're decent filters, but I don't want to have to change them every 2 hours of operation. There's a trick that'll allow you to use each filter much longer. It gives you more bang for your buck and will really help me with this issue, and that's to put 2 of these in parallel. So basically I'm going to set it up like this so that the fuel goes through both filters. I did the same thing on the water that comes into my house, and I have that in my life hacks video. I'll leave a link to it here. By the way, for those of you that haven't seen my first videos, this was an add-on by the previous owner, and I can see why they did it, and that's why I'm maintaining it, but this was not designed into the system. If this pre-filter wasn't here, this fuel water separator, which also has a screen in it, would be constantly getting clogged. The tank has issues, and this is the solution. Putting 2 of these in parallel is going to make it so that these will run a very long time before I need to change them. Now this, the way I'm leaving this filter straight ahead and this filter at a turn, there's going to be a little bit of a bias going to this filter just because it has to change directions here. Inertia will make it want to go straight. So obviously the straight filter will get clogged first, and then as it starts building up resistance, it will more and more of the fuel will turn and go through this filter. And at the end of the day, when I have to change them, this filter won't be quite as full as this one. I don't care. I mean, these things are cheap. I just want the thing to work, and this is really going to help that. So now the fuel has 2 paths. Splits here, comes back together here, and then continues on. So those are both new filters, and you could kind of see it. It only went through this one because it's more resistance to take the turn and go through this one. But as this one clogs, then it gives it another path, and I won't notice anything until both of these filters are pretty well plugged. So yeah, awesome. Check that out. So I cut one of these filters open just to confirm. Earlier when I was holding it up and it wouldn't even drip through the filter, I was thinking, well, maybe the tube continues up in there and that was the reason, but there is no tube up inside. It's just the filter. So yeah, totally blocked. Alright, so let me show you why putting 2 filters in parallel is so useful. Filters have a curve as they filter, and this is the total amount filtered. So, you know, this could be in gallons or say liters, whatever. And then this is the flow. So this would be like liters per minute, something like that. The way these filters work is this tends to fall off quick and then fall off less. So the slope starts steep and then decreases. So in my situation, my inline filter starts here, and that is plenty of flow, whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but that's plenty of flow to support my engine. But I think it's fairly close. Like say it's like here is where my engine says that's no good anymore. It doesn't matter what the units are, but you know, this is 0 flow, 1, 2, 3. So my filter, when it starts out, can do 3, and that's fine. But then if it gets below 2, my engine says, you know, no more. So the only usable area of my filter was right here. If I have 2 of these, that means I can get down to 1 on each, because I need to stay at 2 for my engine to work. So if each filter can do 1, then I'm still at 2. So that means I can filter all the way down to here with each filter. So rather than filtering this volume of material, I've filtered this volume of material before I have to throw the filter away. And it's not intuitive, I think, until you kind of look at the graph and realize like, oh wow, okay. So rather than each filter going from 3 to 2 and being replaced, each filter goes from 3 to 1. And because the curve's flattening out, that is a huge difference. That's far more filtration per filter. So with the 2 filters on there, I will be changing these far, far less than, it won't be like I change it half as often as if I just left it at 1. It'll be much less than that. And I get a lot more out of each filter. Hope that makes sense. I can tell you, I've run the machine since putting these 2 in parallel and no issues. That definitely fixed my problem. So good to go.